When I was a child, we went to a Christmas party, and Santa Claus was there, and he said, "What would you like, little boy?" And I was probably about 4 years old. And the kid before me got this really cool, like, computer, or like pre-computer game, like before, like, it was 1978. And it was called Merlin. It was this little red LED device, and kids that age, it was shiny, it was plastic, it looked really cool. It was like one of the earliest handheld games of that generation. And I said, I want what that kid got before me. And Santa Claus went, ho ho ho. And of course, our parents had selected the gifts, and I don't know, it was my mother or my father, but one of them had gotten a book called All About Otters. And so he drew out this thing with my name on it and he gave it to me. And it was clearly not Merlin, this computer, early generation computer kind of LED game. It was flat and it looked like a book, and I was so depressed. I was like, And I went home, and after 2 or 3 days, I picked it up, and I just, I was like, oh, otters are beautiful, and I fell in love with otters. And I was a very passionate naturalist for a very long time after that, and because there were no otters where we lived, I took the next best thing, which was birds. I don't quite know how it happened, but I became, really passionate about collecting nests and watching birds and drawing birds. My mother was a great artist, or is a great artist, and so there was this culture where, my father was out on ships at sea as a river pilot, and we lived in a place where the natural world is just stunning. And so I went from this very mechanical aspiration in that moment to a love of nature, and then life took me into this deeper connection with the nature of nature, which is the study of the mind. So, the sort of short clip here is about, we have these experiences which seem disappointing. Oh, I wanted this, but I got that. And so the cultivation of acceptance, children throw these big temper tantrums. But as you mature as a human, like the inner journey, for some of us becomes very important. The contemplative life becomes very important. And so what happens always has a gift in it. That is the power of real maturity. And the Stoics are very big on this. How can I turn what I want to happen as being the dominating story in my head to wanting what happens, and from that process drawing out the value of the lesson behind what actually unfolds, as opposed to my ideal scenario, which isn't and hasn't happened. And if you look at the people that are obsessed with manifestation, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with manifesting a happy life, that's perfectly sane, but when it doesn't happen the way you want, the neurosis that comes in, and the sorrow and the pain and the anxiety. And I sense from my experiences so far, like I could tell you the story of my life as a history of great successes, and then I could tell you the story of my life as a history of great pains. But it is the pains that I've experienced, the failure of a marriage, the failure of companies, the failure of many, many things, that I'm not a sadomasochist when I say this, but the gift of those things has been, it's brought me to a state where, that incredible pain, that incredible upset, that incredible sense of self-righteousness, has brought me the greatest gifts of all, because I've realized that, like I had a dream this morning, and I was with this beautiful young woman, and she was just, she didn't have children, she didn't have attachments, she was so innocent, she was like Psyche in the myth, and we bonded physically, and then I lost everything, right? I lost all the things, like my passport and everything. And for that one moment, I had this sense of, oh, I found home, in the physical realm. And then everything that, like, I had a box of things which are very important to my identity. Like we seek constantly from the body's eyes and the ego's eyes this sense of salvation in form. But on the flip side of those projections, there's always the pain of the realization that my salvation from suffering doesn't lie there. I'm not saying it's, perfectly fine to have, a love interest. That's not what I'm saying. But the dream was saying that, at the level of the symbolism, as the body ages, and our attachments and our mad theories about the world can bind us to fear and deception and aggression and condemnation and attack thoughts. That's not what the curriculum of life is about. The curriculum of life is about, this very graceful, inspired movement towards seeing into the illusionary wants. Like, I will not value what is valueless. And there was a certain stage in my life, like after being very inspired by spiritual thoughts and thinking and teachings in India and other places in the world, that I realized that the purpose of life is to reach contemplative ecstasy. And in my own personal life, I don't think I could do that I could, of course, but in a monastery which is dedicated to that on a certain level, I found it a bit anachronistic to that, because it's like trying to dictate how you eat, and it's got all these rules, and it's dictating what's holy and what isn't. Whereas those are all, externals, and really the internal process is like just to find a way to be in this rather crazy world with the number one priority in your mind being contemplation of your deepest, most peaceful, most happy nature, which is not dependent on any externals. I mean, take care of your basic needs. But really that comes through the development of trust. And we white knuckle it. I came back to Ecuador and there was so many fears about my future. And then I was trying to map out a future where I could be an English teacher and all these things. And that's sort of happening on a certain level. But I realized that, being here now, loving what has happened, loving where I am internally, is more important than pining for what should be according to my ego's ideals.